Hello gang, John here again from Rock County Jet Ski, Watcon.com. Welcome to Watercraft Talk. Today's video, I want to talk a little bit about pop-off, carburetor pop-off. This is kind of one of the things you see on the internet all the time. I get emails and phone calls constantly asking, what should my pop-off be? That is not an easy answer, and I just cringe every time somebody asks that on Facebook or one of the watercraft forums, and somebody will come back with an answer and say, 22 pounds. You want such and such main jet, you want such and such pilot jet, set your pop off at 22 pounds. That is incorrect. That you can't say that. You can't go by that. And I want to talk a little bit about that and why. So what we're going to do today is I've got a brand new Mikuni carburetor here that we will open up. And we'll look at it and we'll do a pop-off test. I'm going to talk a little bit about screwdrivers while I'm using this. This is a vessel. You should have in your, if you're doing any kind of work on carburetors, you should have a, this is a JIS screwdriver. This is a JIS number 2 screwdriver, which is different than a regular Phillips screwdriver. These are actually a metric screw, and they do take a different screwdriver, and you can do damage to the screws or not get the screws open. Specifically on this little kidney, the valve body in here, can't get my fat fingers to take that. These screws here can be very difficult to get out, as some of you may or may not know, and all too often we see that these are stripped, and it's because people don't use the correct screwdriver. And if you look at the screw, Chris, if you come in and zoom right in on that screw for me quick, you will see a little dot. If a screw has that little dot, it is a metric JIS screw, and you need to use a metric JIS screwdriver. So enough about screwdrivers for now. Anyway, we're going to talk about pop-off. So the pop-off is a term that we use when we're testing the needle and seat and needle arm spring for, it's exactly what it sounds. The needle and seat pops open at a certain rate or pressure, and we measure that and use that for tuning purposes. This particular carburetor, and I'm going to just look it up here, this is an 8052, it's a new Mikuni SBN 44. No, I'm gonna back up. I'm easily gonna get ahead of myself all the time. If you do not have this, you need a Mikuni tuning manual. We sell them on the website. You can go to Watcon.com, or I'm sure you can find them they're all over on the internet. You can probably download it for free. If you do not have one of these, get one. Get it, read it. When you think you know it, read it again. There is so much valuable information here, and will help you learn how your carburetor works and how to tune it, each circuit. So this carburetor is an 8052. And it tells me it comes with a 2.3 needle and seat and a 65-gram spring from Mikuni. So then we go back to, this is the only time I worry about numbers. We go back to this chart, and you can look right here. This is the needle valve size, 2.3 needle and seat. If we go across to a 65-gram spring, Mikuni says that pops off at 15 pounds. So just for fun, we're going to have a look and see what this pops off at. So I'm going to take a little bit of I got some fogging oil here. I want to make sure the needle and seat is wet, so it is sealed. I always just spray a little bit of fogging oil in there, works very well for that, and you move it up and down to make sure it's coated well. I'm going to, so to do a pop-off pressure test, you pressurize the inlet line and you cap off the return line. I'm going to put a cap on that, and I'm going to put a zip tie on here because Chris is standing here with the camera, and I don't want to shoot that across the room and poke his eye out, and then I'm liable for workers' comp or something like that, or it could just be dangerous. I'd have to stop filming and take him to the hospital, and he'll wear an eye patch, and people will make fun of him, and we don't want that. So I'm going to start. I got a couple of different pumps here, and let's start with, this is a genuine Mikuni pump. We sell these on the website, watcon.com, under tools, and you can get one and have one for yourself. If you're crafty, you can probably make something up with a bicycle tire pump and a gauge or whatever, but these are easy to use and easy to do. So I'm going to hook this up, and now we're in the fuel inlet line, top line's capped off. We've got our oil on the needle and seat. So now we're going to pump this up, and let's just see what we get for, now that popped off really early first. There, it's going up. And we're getting, looks to be about 11 pounds. I'm going to just try it again. It popped off super early at first. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries. Here we go again. Yep, that's popping really early for some reason, but there. We're getting about 11 pounds from what I'm gonna just look here. A little more than 10, just between 10 and 11 pounds. Again, Mikuni says 2.3 needle and seat with a 15 or 65 gram spring should be 15 pounds. Now, if I told you 15 pounds and you check it with your gauge and you're only getting 11, you're going to think something's wrong. There's nothing wrong. This gauge just isn't necessarily reading the same. And just for fun, I'm going to try another gauge here. And my point is who's to say if my gauge reads the same as your gauge, or your gauge reads the same as somebody's gauge on Facebook, or whatever. It's just a gauge, and it's just a number. Don't get hung up on numbers. Pop-off is what it is, and it's important. Here, I'm going to we'll stop babbling for a minute. Again, I'm going to spray a little more oil. That's coated good. Now we're going to try this one. This is my Snap-on pressure tester that I use for many different things. And so this is, we got 5 and up to 10 there. Hold it so you can see it there. See, now that one we popped off really early there at first. That was under 10 pounds. Now we got over 10. Yeah, 15 is way over here though. I'm not getting anywhere near 15. I'm getting about 11, 11 and a half, maybe 12 is what I'm seeing. Irregardless, my moral or my point to this whole thing is, you guys out there, and I know all too well that you mean well. People are just trying to be helpful and give out information, and thank you. But you cannot tell somebody on Facebook or somewhere that your pop-off should be 22 pounds. Who knows what they're going to measure it with the gauge? Who knows if your gauge is correct? You can't go by that. I use the chart. You've got to understand your carburetor circuitry, when you want it to transition, when you want that needle and seat to open. Does it need to open sooner? Does it need to open later? And adjust the pop-off accordingly. I use the chart. I will know that this current carburetor has a 2.3 needle and seat in it with a 65 gram spring. It's probably going to pop off way too early, and it's going to be sluggish on the bottom end, and we're going to be way rich, and I need to raise my pop-off. So I'm going to go up to an 80 gram spring or even a 95 gram spring. And then you can even take it one step further. And if you come in and look at this chart, Chris, with different combinations, you can get different things. So just as a for instance here, we have 20 pounds PSI, I'm pointing at right there, which is a 2.3 needle and seat and a 95 gram spring. I guess, I'm sorry, I don't see another 20, but here's a 21 with an 80 gram spring and a 1.5 needle and seat. No, 2.0 needle and seat. I'm reading this upside down, apologize. Please don't roast me too bad. So with that, if you need to make fine adjustments, you need to have this chart. You need to look at that, and you can go up and down the scale and change your pop-off accordingly. So in talking a little bit about tuning, People will say too, to cut a spring, I get nervous with that. I don't like cutting springs. We used to, I have, and I don't recommend that. Stretching a spring is definitely a big no-no. People will say that. I see that all the time too. Give it a stretch. No, the spring will return. That's a false thing, or a temporary fix. The spring will go back to where it was, or you're going to just damage the spring, and it's not going to work correctly. People also talk about this lever, and you can, the book talks about, you can bend it up and down slightly, and I mean slightly, a hair. And so we checked that the height, use a straight edge, and I just happen to have this works very well. Everybody's got a blade, and you put the blade of the straight edge on the body of the carburetor. This is the body of the carburetor. This is not the body of the carburetor. So put it on the body of the carburetor here, and you want to check the height, and that one is just touching. I like, so that actually should be down just a smidgen. I like this needle arm to be level with the body of the carburetor. So if we move that across, there, it just barely touches as I'm coming back. I find that if you change this dramatically, it's changing the ratio that this moves. If you bend it down too far, it's not going to open enough. If you bend it up too far, it opens too much. It changes the knob here that on the diaphragm that touches it. I strongly suggest having that level with the body of the carburetor. That's my opinion. Take it for what it is. You can maybe that'll work for you, maybe it doesn't, and if something else works for you, fantastic. Again, that's all explained in here. Pop-off is something that we'll talk a little bit about too, the venturi of the carburetor here. If sometimes we need to run a lower pop-off depending on your flame arrestor and your intake setup. If you're running an aftermarket pod style flame arrestor, we got a Tausetti here. These are open and breathe very free, goes on like that. Very little resistance at all. With less resistance, you need a lower pop-off. We have less vacuum in the carburetor. If you, just as your machine's running, if you put your hand close to this, it's going to want to suck it down. If you hold your hand way up here, you don't feel the vacuum. A stock flame arrestor is very restrictive, and you need higher pop-off pressure. This actually, even though we call it pop-off, and when we're testing it, it's pop-off, but it works under vacuum. It's working as fuel is being drawn, and when this is open under a vacuum. So as it draws more, you may or may not want that to open earlier, depending on your tune. And it all is relative with your low-speed jet. It's all part of the low-speed circuit of the carburetor. And again, it's all explained here in the manual. So that's just kind of a little rant that I have when people are saying pop off. What should my pop off be? Somebody, bam, they say right away, 22 pounds. Well, how do you know? You didn't ask what he has for a low-speed jet. You have no idea what the load is. You don't even know what elevation he's running at. There's so many different combinations and things that you need to learn. You guys out there need to learn how to tune and adjust things for yourself. We can help you with that. We do sell jetting kits. I keep notes. I've been doing this for over 35 years, and I keep notes of everything that has worked for us in the past, and I will happily sell you parts and needle and seat combinations with jetting combinations if need be. But yeah, and again, don't get hung up on numbers. I won't even tell you what pop-off is because I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The only time I use my gauges is to make sure that if we're running dual carburetors and I want them both to be identical, I don't care if the chart says it pops off at 32 psi. I have yet to ever have one pop off when it says the chart, to match the chart. I just want to make sure our carburetors are synced. I use the chart again for changes and knowing where we should be, but don't get hung up on numbers. We use the pop-off gauge, again, just for synchronization and to check that everything is sealing. It's a good thing to make sure that you don't have some kind of a leak or something else, a problem that way. All too often we see there's an O-ring around the needle and the seat area, and that can leak. I've seen people not have the needle arm rod incorrectly, and it's wonky and it's leaking. That can be a problem too, and a pop-off gauge will detect that. So with that, I hope that all makes sense to you. I hope you like what you saw. If you do, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications and our upcoming videos. Keep the ideas and comments coming. We sure like hearing from you guys, as I keep saying, but I do, man, I can't tell you enough. It's humbling for me. I hear from you guys, I'm going to say almost daily. I'm talking to somebody who's watching our videos and saying how much they like it, and we sure appreciate it. And even constructive criticism. If you don't like it, tell me what you don't like. As long as you guys liking what we're doing, we'll keep doing this. So I think that's it for today. Be sure to, like I say, hit the subscribe button, like, tag, share, and follow. Most importantly, be nice to each other out there. It's a crazy world, and it's so important to be nice to each other. Get your stuff ready, get your pop-off set, and we'll see you guys out on the water.